on Fresno State Focus, the upcoming election is the first time many college students will be voting. Why first-time voters say it's hard to choose a candidate to support.
Plus, the Jokes for Votes tour made its way to Fresno State's campus. How comedians used their talents to encourage college students to register to vote. Fresno State Focus starts now.
Welcome to Fresno State Focus. I'm Kaylee Hunt.
And I'm Jenna Cliff. The presidential election is right around the corner.
We are just 6 days away from finding out who will be our next president. Alexis Govea tells us on how the Safe Mart Center guest speaker prepared students for the upcoming election.
Please join me in giving a warm Central Valley welcome to Doris Kearns Goodwin.
President Castro invited author Doris Kearns Goodwin to Fresno State to educate the campus and the community on politics and the upcoming presidential election. Goodwin is a presidential historian and Pulitzer Prize-winning author. She was an assistant to former President Lyndon B. Johnson during and after his presidency. Goodwin says leading up to the 2016 presidential election has been a wild and crazy adventure.
People have talked about it, people have felt connected to it. But in the end, it hasn't been uplifting, I think, on either side in a certain sense. So I think, finally it's been going on, it seems forever. I think people will feel a breath of relief. Finally, we can talk about something else.
Trump supporter Nick Matoyan is a member of college Republicans. He says this election is unprecedented.
However, I do think that there's a clear choice that we must elect Donald Trump as president because I do believe Hillary Clinton represents the establishment in this case.
Clinton supporter Pat Henning says Trump is an embarrassment to the country.
I truly do not believe that he has the integrity or the temperament to be a leader in this country in any way.
Henning says that's why it's important for students to get involved and vote. 4 years ago, students and community members were able to vote on campus at the Satellite Student Union. But this year, the nearest polling place is across from campus at the University Vineyard Christian Fellowship. If you don't know where to drop off your ballot, the elections office has set up 9 ballot drive-through sites in Fresno County. You can go to our website, FresnoStateFocus.com, for a list of drive-through sites. Alexis Govea, Fresno State Focus.
Later on in Fresno State Focus, we'll tell you about another group who visited campus to get students involved in the election.
Even though many voters wish to cast their vote, they often say they don't have time to make it to the polls. Mail-in ballots make the voting process as simple as possible. Voters no longer have to wait or even leave their home. These ballots were sent to voters that requested them. Some students are finding this to be their first choice.
The good thing about voting absentee is that it's a lot more convenient, and it's people are more likely to vote when they have it's from the comfort of their own home. When you have to go down there on the actual day, it's really easy to just go, nah, I don't want to do that because I don't want to stand in line.
Mail-in ballots need to be filled out and postmarked by November 8th. People were sent a voter information guide to help them make this big decision. If you are using the mail-in ballot option, don't forget to put it in your mailbox and send it out.
Proposition 63 is giving voters a chance to change the current regulations that exist when buying ammunition for firearms. Supporters say voting yes to the prop means voting for the removal of guns from criminals. New requirements for selling or purchasing ammunition would also become law. Voting no means keeping the current requirements that are in place for buying and selling ammunition. One Fresno State student says the regulations are in a good place right now.
I'm not against, background checks, and, people obviously do bad things with guns, but it's going to take away the focus for law enforcement to not only looking for the people who are doing bad things with guns, but they're going to go after, upstanding citizens who, follow the law and have guns.
People who are against the proposition say this will burden law-abiding citizens who want to get ammunition, and criminals will still find a way to get guns. Another Fresno State student believes that those purchasing guns should be okay with this extra step.
I think it's just an extra step that they should be okay with taking because it's for the safety of everyone else, so other people can't get them illegally and it'll just it's an extra step, an extra hassle, but for the better of everybody, I think.
Again, supporters say a yes vote means the removal of guns from criminals and new required background checks for selling and buying ammunition. Voting no means keeping the regulations the way they are today.
Joining us now is Andrew Savitch. He's the Campus Democratic Club president. And Andrew, can you please tell me what your take is on Proposition 63?
So Proposition 63 was actually put forward by one of the major state candidates for governorship in 2018, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. He actually wants to put in place new regulations that make it so you have to go through a background check in order to get ammunition. And it's also banning large amounts of ammunition purchases. So that would be one of the main things that you get out of this.
Mm-hmm. And then moving on to Hillary Clinton, how do you think that her most recent allegations, do you think that they will hurt her chances?
So about Hillary Clinton's emails and everything like that, there have been no clear evidence that any new allegations are coming about. The FBI sent out an erroneous notice to different parts of the Congress that were actually investigating her. They should have never put that out. It has nothing to do with her, really, as far as we are concerned. It's all about Anthony Weiner and his wife, Huma Abedin. So it doesn't have anything to do with Hillary Clinton and should not affect her.
And what do you think is one thing that Clinton could do to get the support of people that she already doesn't have?
So as far as getting new support, it'll be very hard to get new support in the last week, less than a week now. But what she really needs to do is focus on spreading a positive image about herself and her vice president candidate, as well as informing voters that this vote does matter and that it is not clearly decided already by pre-election votes.
And so she is ahead right now by 5 points. Do you think that there's a chance that Donald Trump could win?
I've been constantly asked that. I don't think that Donald Trump has any chance of winning. He's so far behind, there's going to be a landslide. But the thing is, we can't take that 5% for granted. We have to remember to focus on getting people out to vote. While we may be in a safe spot right now with polls, we need to get people out to vote to actually make those polls effective. So that's what I have to say about that.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about the Collegian coming out and supporting Clinton today and endorsing her?
So I actually just saw that come out and I'm ecstatic. I expected it in a way. I wasn't sure if they'd actually endorse a candidate. I know that they've been very hard on Trump so far, so it was kind of expected that they're a more liberal group. But it was very exciting to see that they did actually come out in support of her, as they're joining the Fresno State College Democrats, they're joining the Democrats in the region and around the nation, that we are in support of Hillary Clinton to be the first female president of the United States.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Andrew.
No problem.
We've been talking with Andrew Savitch, president of the Fresno State Democratic Club.
And coming up in a few minutes, I'll be talking with the treasurer of the Republican Club on campus. California is asking voters to decide whether the tax on tobacco should be raised. Fresno State Focus reporter Tiara Richardson talks to citizens about their opinions on Proposition 56.
The purpose of Proposition 56 is to protect children, save lives, and get smokers to do their part in giving back to health care. Donnie Littleton, a current smoker, often struggles with the pressures of life. She never took much interest in politics or voting until she saw a sign in a local smoke shop informing her that there would be an increase in tobacco taxes.
Sometimes I smoke to relieve stress from school, work, or just with my daughter. I think it's just when I go outside and I smoke, it's just me time.
She plans on voting no on Proposition 56. As a single mother, her finances are already tight. An extra $2 for cigarettes would be spending beyond her means. If the Proposition 56 passes, Littleton says she might look into other means of relieving stress. Justina Felix, the advocacy manager of the American Lung Association, says the last time California raised their taxes was in 1998.
No on 56 has outraged supporters 2-1.
Every year, Medi-Cal spends $3.5 billion to treat smoking-related illnesses. And as taxpayers, whether you smoke or don't smoke, We're all paying towards that.
The tax was originally only 87 cents, and about 34 other states have higher taxes rates. The tax would not just be on cigarettes, but on other tobacco-related products. Felix also says the money raised by the tax increase will help pay for breast cancer screenings and tobacco prevention. Jake Martinez, a Fresno State mass communication student, has been following the campaign and has decided to vote yes.
Personally, I'm not affected because I'm not a smoker, but I think it's a good idea because this has been implemented in the past in other states, so there will be less underage smokers.
The month of November is when we will finally get word of whether the proposition will be passed or not. Tiara Richardson, Fresno State Focus.
The American Cancer Society sponsored this proposition, saying that it will save lives, but those against the Prop 56 say that only a small percentage of people will actually be prevented from smoking.
When voting on the death penalty, be sure to know the difference between Proposition 62 and 66. Proposition 62 would repeal the death penalty and replace it with life in prison without the possibility of parole. This would apply to prisoners already on death row. Prop 66 would keep the death penalty but change procedures in order to speed up the appeals process. It would put trial courts in charge of initial petitions. But some students say regardless of what we end up with, death penalty laws will never be perfect.
There's also a lot of people that are in prisons that were wrongly accused or wrongly trialed, and it's not always going to be like straightforward black and white. There's like gray areas.
If you want more information on either of these propositions or other proposed legislation, go to the official Voter Information Guide website.
California could become the first state to ban single-use plastic bags. Coming up on Fresno State Focus, how this could affect consumers at major retailers and grocery stores.
Plus, legalizing marijuana, what students say about the pros and cons of Proposition 64. All that when we return.
This is our Fresno State, forming relationships and learning experiences that last a lifetime, making friends who are like family, learning from professors who treat us like family, and earning a degree to make a better future for our family. Nice. Engaging our alumni generation by generation by generation. This is our Fresno State. Welcome to the family.
Success. At Fresno State, it's no secret. It's discovering new ways to change our world. It's creating opportunities as diverse as our community itself. It's in the distinction of our graduates as they lead us into the future. Success is no secret at Fresno State. It's our mission.
You're probably used to getting your groceries put in free plastic bags when checking out at the supermarket, but that could all change.
Proposition 67 proposes to reduce litter and protect wildlife by placing a 10-cent charge on shopping bags.
Proposition 65 calls for the proceeds of the 10-cent charges to be placed in a fund for California environmental projects. One consumer says this 10-cent charge could add up.
So I think no, because what if you have to go on like a big shopping trip and the 10 cents are gonna add up? So if you get 10 bags, you're paying $1 extra.
These propositions were put on the ballot by plastic bag manufacturers.
These manufacturers are hopeful that these propositions would get rid of the plastic bag ban that was put into effect by Governor Brown 2 years ago.
Measure K is back on the Kings County ballot this November after narrowly losing in June by less than 70 votes.
This measure would take $4 million from taxes that would normally go to the state and direct it back to Kings County. Ryan Smith talked to one police officer who says passing this measure may help crews get to emergency situations faster.
Charlene Ornelas was watching from the window of her house 2 weeks ago as a motorist tried to run over 2 young boys.
I called 911 to try and get some response to help the boys, and it took them over 30 minutes to get anybody here to help them.
The 2 boys weren't hurt, but Ornelas was frustrated by the slow police response time. Avenel Police Chief Rusty Stivers is frustrated too.
When the officer has to transport to the Kings County Jail, it's 40 miles away, and at times there's
What that does is that leaves one officer in town, and that's not safe for the officers, and it's certainly not safe for the community as well.
Stivers blames short staffing and an increase in crime that he says was caused by Proposition 47 that voters passed in 2014. It reduced the penalties for some drug and property crimes, allowing nonviolent criminals back on the streets. Local law enforcement believe that Measure K will help them put more personnel on the streets so they can keep the criminals off the street and tackle the increased rise in crime. Kings County Sheriff David Robinson says in the past 2 years, the robbery and stolen vehicle crime rate has increased 84% and 52%. He says the county needs the $4 million that Measure K would provide to address that increase.
Most of our agencies, we've been short-staffed for many years or haven't seen staffing increases, and Measure K will go a long way to help build up those staffing levels so we can have better response times and more officers and deputies in the community.
Not only would Measure K money go to local law enforcement, but it would also go to the local firefighting services. Assistant Fire Chief Rick Smith says right now they can only afford to have one firefighter on duty at a time in some stations.
The fire department is going to use Measure K money to add personnel. We're going to add 6 personnel to the department, and so the stations that are staffed with only 1 person, we will be able to double the staffing at those stations to 2 people, which is going to increase safety for our firefighters and their communities.
Lemoore Police Chief Daryl Smith says that it is important for people to know that Measure K is not a new tax, only a redirection of money from state to local.
And it's a rare opportunity to have that money stay local, not put a burden on our taxpayers because it's not going to increase what they're currently paying at 7.5%.
If Measure K passes, the sales tax would go up 1/4 of a cent. But people in Kings County may not even notice because another sales tax is scheduled to end. Ryan Smith, Fresno State Focus.
Taxes that were put into place by Proposition 30 will no longer apply starting December 31st. The taxes proposed in Measure K would replace the taxes that were in Prop 30. As the election approaches, more and more Americans are casting their votes.
Here's Tiara Richardson with an update from the pollsters.
Donald Trump couldn't hide his enthusiasm when last Friday's letter from FBI Director Comey was publicized. Now that focuses on Hillary Clinton's email again. The polls are swinging in Trump's favor. The big question is, who will win the presidency? Let's look at the big picture. This data comes from the website 538, which averages 10 major polls. It has Clinton still in the lead with 49% to Trump's 42%, but Clinton is down significantly from last week. The middle of the country is showing a lot of red from Idaho to Florida. Most of the polls still have Clinton in the lead with electoral votes. Clinton is projected to have 259 to Trump's 191. 270 electoral votes are needed to win. California is one of the states that is considered to be reliable Democratic because of the 45% of the voters are Democrats and 27% are Republican. That would explain why Clinton is currently in the lead with 99.9%. But the states we want to look out are the swing states, meaning the Democratic and Republican registration numbers are almost even, or there might also be a large number of independent voters. Those states include New Hampshire, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, and a few others. Trump mentioned earlier that he is leading in Ohio right now, and he is. Today's polls show him with 48% to Clinton's 44%. Clinton is still in the lead in Florida with 50% of the vote to Trump's 49%, according to today's CNN polls. One of the swing states Trump also mentioned earlier was Iowa. Those numbers are from before the latest email scandal. Trump has 47% to Clinton's 46%. Who's to say who will win because the polls are constantly changing. If you want to keep up on the latest polls, go to 538.com. That's the very latest from the polls. Back to Jenna and Kaylee.
Thanks, Tiara. Proposition 64 has some marijuana users voting against the legalization of marijuana.
Those who don't use the drug admit that they will be voting for the proposition. Fresno State Focus reporter Gracie Sanchez tells us why some are voting differently than you would expect.
Proposition 64 initiative will legalize marijuana under state law. A public health administrator says that she thinks about her children and if that is something she would want her children to be around. Although her motherly instinct tells her to vote no, she admits that legalizing marijuana can also have positive purposes.
It could be used for medicinal purposes and available for those that have medical issues that they could benefit from it.
One student believes that legalizing marijuana can prevent people from going to jail.
It's less common for people to go to jail or prison for substance abuse.
Other students say voting yes on the proposition could allow the drug to have negative effects.
I'm not for Proposition 64 because I feel like if marijuana gets legalized, they're going to raise taxes on it and tamper with it more than what it needs to be. I just feel like it's going to be more detrimental than what it is now.
Proposition 64 will be on the ballot November 8 for Election Day. All registration polls here in Fresno and in the Central Valley will be open at 7 o'clock in the morning all the way up to 8 o'clock at night. Make sure to go and vote. Grecia Sanchez, Fresno State Focus.
If this proposition is passed, marijuana will be legal to use for those who are 21 and older.
Donald Trump is still behind Hillary Clinton in this 2016 presidential election. Zachary Hill is the current treasurer of the College Republican Club at Fresno State and is here to discuss Donald Trump and the importance of voting in this election. Thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem.
So I was wondering, we hear on the news all the time that millennials can make or break this vote. What do you think about millennials and college peers voting in this election?
Well, I think it's a very abnormal, first vote for many people. You normally would expect to have clear candidates where you can really distinguish, what their ideologies are. And we look at this election and it's kind of different because we see a lot of statements that go both ways from the same candidate. So, this election specifically, I would, recommend to vote on the issues and not the candidate.
Talking about the candidates, you know that a lot of people do not really support Donald Trump but love Mike Pence. So what are your thoughts on that, supporting for a candidate maybe for his VP nominee?
Well, one of the things Donald Trump has stated quite a bit is that he's going to use the people who he has with him. And I think that one of the big things that has been avoided in the past has been just that. And what we need to do is we need to start using, the government positions that we have in place. So if you do support Pence, that's a great reason to vote Donald Trump because he will allow Pence to do, what he feels his job entitles him to do.
Now switching about California propositions. California Proposition 63 is the gun ammunition regulations and they might be implemented if they get passed. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the idea of background checks is something that the right is kind of veering towards the middle. But when you start to talk about, limiting ammunition and having requirements for permits to either sell or purchase the ammunition, we run into problems because we don't have any platform set into place that's going to stop the illegal weapons and the crime that they cause. So if there's no place for that, I don't feel like the right's going to be comfortable with this law because it doesn't really solve the problem.
Now, Proposition 64 is about the marijuana being legal. Can you see that passing?
I could see it passing. Surprisingly enough, many people that are recreational smokers actually oppose the law because we saw back in, I think it was Colorado, they passed the law, everyone was very excited, and then the price increased 600%. So I think many people are worried, and they're also worried about, well, where's this money going to go? Because they're having a 15% tax increase on the medical marijuana. Well, now we're wondering where's that going to go? And the answer is big business is going to take it over, and people are going to have a lot more limitations growing their own medicinal marijuana.
Thank you for being here today. We have been talking to Zachary Hill, the treasurer of the College Republican Club on campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up on Fresno State Focus, Proposition 60 is grabbing the attention of many as they fill out their ballots. How the porn industry will be affected if this proposition is passed. All that and more when Fresno State Focus returns.
I got the bulldog spirit up in my head.
Up in my head.
Up in my head.
I got that bulldog spirit up in my head. Up
in my head to say, got that bulldog spirit deep in my heart, deep in my heart, deep in my heart. Got that bulldog spirit deep in my heart, deep in my heart to stay. I got that bulldog spirit down in my toes, down in my toes, down in my toes. I got that bulldog spirit down in my toes, hey, down in my toes to stay. I got that bulldog spirit up in my head, deep in my heart, down in my toes. I got that bulldog spirit all over me to stay. I got that bulldog spirit deep in my heart. Deep in my heart, deep in my heart. I got that bulldog.
For many college students across the country, the upcoming election will be their first chance to vote.
Many students have been keeping up with the debates in preparation for Election Day, but some first-time voters say they still don't feel confident about which candidate to support as they head to the polls.
As a first-time voter, this campaign is really difficult because both candidates come with such bad publicity and baggage that it's hard to know who to vote for.
At these polls in Utah, voters choose to write in Mitt Romney and Bernie Sanders instead. Neither Romney nor Sanders are registered as write-in candidates, so those ballots will not be counted. Also on this year's ballot is Proposition 60. If you vote yes, you're supporting the use of condoms in adult films. Supporters say that would help advocate the practice of safe sex. Opponents say showcasing condoms in adult films will do nothing to encourage safe sex. Prop 60 would require adult film producers to provide condoms during filming. The Jokes for Vote comedy tour brought many laughs and an important message to campus 2 weeks ago.
Reporter Nikki McCabe takes us inside the comedy show that combined entertainment and politics.
The comedy show is free.
After classes were over, students headed over to the Satellite Student Union for a night of comedy. Funny or Die and Next Gen brought the Jokes for Votes comedy tour to campus. Comedians such as Kate Berlant and Dimitri Martin took the stage making jokes about the election and their own political views. Here at the Satellite Student Union, Jokes for Votes got people laughing with comedians during the show, but also got people not registered ready to vote for election season. People like Destiny Kaywood realized that they weren't registered thanks to the event. Michelle Sine says the tour helped at least 25% of their audience at colleges in California to get registered or check information.
We kind of want to make a reason for college kids to get out of their dorm, kind of get them a little more excited about voting because, you know, we're all, with this election, we're all hearing about it all the time.
Alejandra Prado says she's happy this event took place and promoted registration for students on campus.
It was like a great experience for students to see as well, learn how to register to vote because their voice matters, and it's a good break from school.
Destiny says she's glad she came to the event. She's not happy with the candidates, but still sees the importance of making a vote.
If I do vote, at least I can feel like my voice was heard maybe even a little bit, even if I don't really feel like it made a difference. At least I tried.
The power of one vote is no joke. Nikki McCabe, Fresno State Focus.
Next week on Fresno State Focus, our Veterans Day show special with an in-depth look at Honor Flight. We'll also talk to one Fresno State student who has earned his degree after serving his country in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Plus, how one Korean War veteran found a love for broadcasting while overseas at an Air Force base in Morocco.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.